outside and who haven't been affected by the challenges of mental health issues. It's now accepted that 1 in 7 adults will experience mental health challenges in any given year, and that the real figures for suicide across the island of Ireland are as high as 1,000 people annually. So I want to ask you about the Mental Health Commission's annual report, Tánaiste, which was published on Monday. The state's mental health policy, A Vision for Change, has been in place since 2006. The Mental Health Commission has undertaken a strategic review as part of developing a new strategic plan for 2016 to 2018. And the Commission's report illustrates how much remains to be done. And this includes the need for independent monitoring of the Vision for Change policy, and given that the policy is 10 years old and allowing for the increases in population and other demographic changes, I would imagine that you would agree that this is very, very urgently needed. There are also huge issues around funding, or the lack of funding. The current level of funding for mental health is still less than the 8.24% target based on the 2005 figures envisaged in A Vision for Change. And the staffing levels are about 75% of the Vision for Change recommended number. According to the Mental Health Commission's report, there is a serious deficiency in the development and provision of recovery-orientated mental health services. And this concept, Tánaiste, which is about aiding a person's recovery rather than managing the illness, is crucial. The report says that the reason for this is the combined effect of poor manpower planning, lack of change in professional training schemes, cuts in public expenditure, delays in recruitment and a shortage of appropriately trained staff. Now, I don't have the time to go through all of the report's details, but I would like to raise some very specific issues. One has to do with 24-hour staffed community residences. The Commission remains concerned that some of these are too large, have poor physical infrastructure, are institutional in nature and lack individual care plans. And it goes on to say, and this is very alarming, John Collier, that there is a fundamental issue of identifying precisely the number of residences and people living in them. In other words, we don't know. This is an alarming revelation. The Commission also expresses concern about the admission of children to adult services. In 2015, 95 children were admitted to adult units, and I'm sure you will agree that this is totally unacceptable. And finally, the Government has yet to bring in draft legislation to bring about the changes envisaged in the review of the Mental Health Act 2001, which was published in December 2014. So, Tánaiste, my question is straightforward. Do you accept that the Government has to act on the findings of this report?
Thank you, Deputy Adams. Tánaiste.
Well, I certainly accept that the whole area of mental health needs ongoing investment, and we need to prioritise that, and I hope the Health Committee will prioritise a discussion of the implementation, the full implementation of a Vision for Change, and also, of course, that does need a review. The report that you referenced, the Mental Health Commission annual report to 2015, it does indeed reflect the very widely accepted need to develop further a complete community-based mental health service with a prevention and recovery focus. I'm sure there isn't a person in this House who doesn't agree with what you say about the need for priority, focus and ongoing improvement and investment in the whole mental health area. Thankfully, we have seen changes. We have seen the move from residential to community, but unfortunately, I think the whole economic situation did impact on the development and on the implementation of a Vision for Change. And what we have to do now, given that we have the resources available, is make sure that we accelerate funding in this area. And indeed, that's what the Government has done. And we are committed to providing additional resources in this area. And if you look at the recent Government decision where 500 million extra was allocated to the health area, that involved an increase in mental health funding from 785 million in 2015 2015 to a projected budget of $826 million in 2016, and this represents an increase of $41 million, or 5.2%. So that funding is very important, but obviously the recruitment of frontline staff has been difficult as well, but needs to continue. Vacancies are being advertised as I speak, and hopefully that will begin to build up the complement of posts that are necessary. Up to 1,150 posts have been filled up to the end of 2015, with 270 posts approved for the child and adolescent services, which also need development and staff. So there are a number of priority development areas which have been identified already that will be ongoing this year, and they include the improved counselling services, the provision of 3 new jigsaw centres, which I think are extremely important to young people in local communities. I'm sure you'll agree that the provision of those extra centres will be very important, particularly for the more vulnerable children in areas across the country. You make a point about children who are admitted to adult psychiatric units, and indeed I think it is shameful that we continue to have a situation, even though it has hugely changed from over 200 children who were being admitted to adult inpatient psychiatric units. It's down to 95 last year, but every one of those is one too many. So we have to accelerate our efforts. There is increased funding, and it will begin to deal with the issues I've identified in a more comprehensive way, and Minister McEntee is determined to have a very strong priority focus on the mental health issues that you've identified, and indeed we all know need continuing attention.
Tánaiste. Deputy Adams.
Tánaiste and I and other Choctaw have been raising these issues regularly, and I don't minimise the challenges which are involved, and I wish Minister McEntee well. And Sinn Féin will cooperate with her in dealing with this crucially important issue. In fact, the last Uachtaráin of Sinn Féin, Choctaw Marie MacDonald, has national responsibility for our mental health and suicide prevention portfolio. And I believe firmly that an all-party and an all-island and all-Ireland approach is required, and there should be full cooperation with our colleagues in the north. And I've long argued for an all-island suicide prevention strategy and for a campaign similar to that undertaken by the Road Safety Authority. And although the Taoiseach has made positive responses to this over the years, this is yet to be put in place, so I commend that approach to you and to Minister McEntee. I welcome your assertion that mental health services need investment, and I look to you to deliver on that. But I don't accept that the recession played a part in underinvestment. It was government decisions which led to underinvestment, and in fact an unfortunate insight into the government's attitude was the fact that funding which was actually ring-fenced for mental health was used for other purposes.
Thank you, Deputy Adams.
I know that has been restored, but this doesn't imbue confidence. Another, and I'll finish on this, John Collier, another damning finding of the Mental Health Commission is that 10% of facilities inspected by it in 2015 were not compliant.
All right, thank you, Deputy
So I'm
Adams.
asking the question, Led the Hull,
yes.
is when will the government publish an implementation plan for the outstanding elements of the Vision for Change, and when will we have the opportunity to discuss this
Tánaiste.
here?
In relation to the